Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is finally out, so let's not delay and jump right into it. And if you're feeling competitive, stay tuned for a special announcement. You won't want to miss this. Massive thanks to Bandai Namco for providing a copy of the game. Right off the bat, this game hits the ground running with the presentation. It opens smoothly with a cinematic tutorial before taking you to a ridiculously cool dynamic main menu, fully rendered in 3D, and when you switch between categories, Goku moves to a totally different location with a different set of characters. When you cycle through the options, the camera angle changes too. Oh, and everyone has passive banter if you just linger on the menu, and I think this may just be one of my favorite anime game menus ever. But let's talk characters. In any of the versus modes, the character select happens on the map you're about to play on, and once you select the character, there's this very smooth transition straight into the fight, and I love this so much. There's a second thing I love about the character select, but I'll get to that in a little bit because I want to talk about just how huge this character roster is. There's so many characters, it's almost unbelievable. Sure, there's probably more overall in something like Xenoverse 2 with its DLC, but this is the base launch roster, and every single character has their own unique playstyles, stats, and movesets. Some even have a multitude of costume options. Obviously, this is the first time this series is seeing Dragon Ball Super and beyond, which is pretty satisfying after all this time. There's a pretty big range of characters in general, though, including characters from OG Dragon Ball, movies, GT, Super, and even a special pre-order bonus of the Dragon Ball Daima version of Goku, which inexplicably only has Japanese voiceover. And as of this video, DLC has already been announced, including characters from Dragon Ball Super Superhero and some future Daima DLC too. There's a couple of characters I expected to be here that aren't though, like Pikkon and Super 17. Maybe we'll get them somewhere down the line, I have no idea. The in-battle visuals have a cell shading style here that's totally unique and executed differently from any previous arena fighter I've ever played. The colors are bright and vibrant, but what makes it different was really hard to pin down at first, but I think a huge part of it is the way the outlines feel like they vary in thickness, as if they were actual pencil strokes rather than just uniform lines like most games. Plus, this is one of the only times I can remember a Dragon Ball game ever going for the full Saiyan aura effect, where there's obviously the big aura, but also this coating of plasma-like energy on the surface of the character's body. I don't even think Fighters did this, and I never realized just how much it enhances the art style of Dragon Ball and is a huge part of the identity, and I hope future games keep doing this. But that's not all. The blasts and effects here are over the top and beautiful, especially the explosion and smoke effects. Quick note, I only noticed this while getting footage for editing this video just now, but did that beam just displace the smoke? I can't replicate this consistently, but if that's actually what it does, that's so cool. Anyways, back to the video. And also the general key auras that everyone has. The animations are top tier too, and the special moves are as visceral and well choreographed as you could ever hope for. And the scale is just so much bigger. Like when you compare this to something like Tenkaichi 3, it shows you just how insanely far this has come. Here's a couple of comparisons.
If I don't, who will? Dragon Fist! If I don't, who will? Dragon Fist!
And to quickly touch on the stage selection, most of the stages that you'd want are here, though there's a few obvious exclusions like Kame House and the Lookout, which is weird because those do exist on the main menu. Maybe they'll show up later. I can forgive that though because the stages themselves are back to being fully destructible and now they're super incredibly detailed. The environments and the maps have this more realistic, less cartoony look than the character models, and that actually makes the characters and effects pop and contrast even more. But there's so many little details on these maps that you're probably never gonna see in action, which includes the interiors of some buildings which have fully modeled layouts for when they're destroyed. This game is just so beautiful and genuinely goes toe-to-toe with something like Fighters, which is incredibly impressive given the scale. It's still fresh, but I genuinely think this might be the best an anime game has ever looked. I know I'm giving this game a ton of praise right off the bat, but if you know me, you know I'm a huge sucker for presentation, and that's why I'm gonna keep fawning, because this game has so much character-specific dialogue. Oh my god. So obviously there's a ton of special interactions for matchups during the battles before and after fights, with unique and fun interactions for a huge number of character combinations, but let's go back to the character select menu. Do you have any idea how giddy I was when I found out there's character-specific dialogue in the character select of all things? Excuse me? Certain combinations of characters lead to unique dialogue between them, and I've found quite a few, but there's so many characters in this game, who knows how many haven't been found.
Yeah! Let's step into the grand tour!
Oh, whoa! Hold up a second, Pan.
Hope there's gonna be some good food!
Let's see who's the strongest of all! I think we already know who's the greatest.
I'm right here, you know! There's no contest! Don't even bother!
The controls here are different from the previous Tenkaichi games by default, but there is an optional classic style for those who prefer it. I actually kind of like the new controls, and I think they feel a lot more modern and intuitive, at least for me. Additionally, there's this optional control assist thing where it automatically can perform certain actions like guard, I think, but I genuinely think having this on was making me play worse actually, so I kept it off most of the time. It felt like I couldn't perform vanishes as consistently. Something I can't turn off though are these random moments when the input detection gets, I don't know, confused? It happens the most when I'm trying to follow up a combo or rush, or even charging my ki with a blast technique. I'll be holding down R2 to prepare a technique, but the game will just kind of ignore the fact that I'm holding it, so when I press square, instead of firing off an ability, my character will just awkwardly grab at the air. Over time, I found that it actually really wants you to let go of R2 and then press it again, but I can't imagine this is intentional, especially since this happens basically all the time. Still, the controls are pretty solid otherwise, and that's really my only major complaint. As far as specific mechanical changes, the first thing I noticed is that beam techniques can actually curve now. I can't believe it took this long for this to finally happen, but man, never let another Dragon Ball Arena fighter go back to the straight line Kamehamehas. There's a new mechanic called a perception stance that you can activate by holding down the circle button on a PlayStation controller, and in this stance, your ki drains constantly, but you're able to parry incoming enemy attacks. It works pretty similarly to the auto counters from previous games, but differs depending on the context, including folding the Sonic sway mechanic into it as one of the possible rebuttals. A second new defensive mechanic is revenge counters, which can be used when you're being attacked from the front only, but they can interrupt an attack like a parry, but they also cost a skill count, which is the new name for blast stocks. Revenge counters aren't infallible though, as an opponent can use one of their own skill counts to kind of parry your parry. In addition to standard special techniques, you also have skills that you can activate at the cost of a skill count instead of ki. These include offensive shockwaves, HP recovery, and stat boosts. This makes them pretty useful for when you're caught up in a combo. And of course, there's multiple kinds of clash mechanics here, but I can happily report that beam struggles are back. And speaking of, I really love that connecting an ultimate blast with basically anybody leads to a unique special cinematic scene, and most characters even have different scenes for different attacks if they're in higher transformations too. Using specific characters or having them in your party in any mode increases their proficiency level, which unlocks bonuses for them like titles that you can use for your profile. And speaking of unlocks, you can unlock a lot of stuff naturally through just playing the game and completing challenges and milestones, but also through the in-game shop, which populates more and more items as you play more and more and increase your player level. An overall statistic that kind of tells you how far along you are. I like this almost old school way of unlocking things and not quite knowing what's left to unlock, and I'll talk a little bit more about the shop later on. A couple of little extra things that I wanted to mention is that first, there are playable Great Apes in this game, but unfortunately, the cool mechanic where nighttime stages can unlock a Great Ape transformation for Saiyans like Bardock and Raditz is totally gone, limiting these transformations to specific characters only. Additionally, this is the first time I can remember where Great Saiyaman is now listed as a transformation for Gohan on top of his character slot. This leads to this really fun transformation scene.
My strength is peerless! Power up! I am the unmitigated champion of justice, the Great Saiyaman!
Unfortunately though, there's no Great Saiyaman 2 here. The game's modes are broken down into categories, which are Episode and Custom, Battle and Training, Challenges and Missions, Shop and Customize, Gallery, and Come Forth. So first let's talk about Episode and Custom Battle. Episode Battle is what I'd call the main course of single-player content in Sparking Zero and includes branching story paths for a number of characters, and oh boy, there's a lot to this mode. While there's only a handful of characters with story paths, there's there's still quite a bit of meat to this mode. Each character has a series of linear chapters that include cutscenes and battles, the kind of thing you'd expect from this kind of mode. However, some scenes have choices that you can make that can outright alter your path and put you on a completely separate what-if scenario. And it doesn't stop there. A lot of the battles themselves have their own special clear requirements that can put you on another what-if path too. These what-if stories are great and do some really neat and wacky stuff. I really want to talk about them in more detail, but this game is so new that I don't really want to spoil the fun for everyone because people are still unlocking these. But also, I straight up still haven't unlocked all of them either because, well, this game is pretty challenging. Now, before people come in and start proclaiming that I have a skill issue, yes, I do have a skill issue, but also, this game is objectively challenging. In general, it's a reasonable difficulty that I wouldn't describe as insurmountable. However, some of these what-if clear conditions are ridiculously hard to pull off for the average player. And see, there is an option to toggle on a slightly lower difficulty, but not only can that difficulty still be intense, lowering the difficulty at all completely removes the ability to even go down these what-if branches. I get that these are supposed to be kind of a reward for playing well or whatever, but I really just want to see the cool scenes play out without wanting to rip my hair out in frustration. Some of these fights straight up feel like the AI is tuned to just read all of your inputs, and it can be pretty grating to retry over and over and over, especially if the clear condition is a secondary win condition, like some fights asking you to, I don't know, beat the fight really fast. If you beat the fight but not really fast, but you still clear it, there's no retry button, so you have to wait for the game to let you go back into the menu after the normal scene plays out, and then navigate through a bunch of scenes and menus just to get back into that fight. Now, that all being said, I still really love this mode, and there's just a ton of content here. While the challenge can be frustrating in some parts, I am happy that it's not stupid easy either. I feel like some games in the past, like, I don't know, some of the stuff in Xenoverse 2, for example, was just way too easy. But also, I love that there's all kinds of cutscenes that are completely fully voiced, aside from the standard narration. And just to tangent for a second, during the battles, there's a lot of in-battle dialogue and storytelling, which obviously I love, but what's really neat, and something that I haven't seen anyone else point out, is that whenever you use a special move in battles, normally the character will yell out that special move. However, if a character is in the middle of dialogue, or someone else is talking, the character doesn't say anything and their mouth doesn't move, which is such a cool instance of attention to detail, and honestly, not at all necessary, but man, does it enhance the presentation. And just to add, the voice performances here are insanely good, and I'd even go as far as to say that this is the best English voice acting I have ever heard in a Dragon Ball game, and I've played a lot of Dragon Ball games. But it goes a step further, and I don't know if this is the first Dragon Ball game to do this, but every character form seems to have its own unique voice acting, like Super Saiyan 3 Goku having that gruff, feral sound. In Tenkaichi 3, character-specific dialogue just seemed to use the default voice clip. Here's an example.
Let's settle this, Kakarot.
It's been a long time since we fought seriously, huh?
Let's settle this, Kakarot.
It's been a long time since we fought seriously, huh?
Kakarot, it's time we settle this once and for all.
It's you and me, Vegeta. I'm ready. I'm sorry this took so much longer than the others, but I haven't had as much practice with this one.
So this is your Super Saiyan 3.
And extra side tangent, the transformation and technique scenes are also fantastic. Every time someone transforms or fires off a signature move, it's just ridiculously fun to watch, and it never gets old seeing these scenes play out battle after battle. I know I keep showing clips, but here, take a look at this comparison from Tenkaichi 3. Anyways, to go back to the story stuff, there's a lot of cutscenes in these story branches, but a big complaint that I have is that they kind of went for this freeze frame stylized thing, which seemed kind of cool at first, right? Especially with these really neat animated transitions with like the pencil lines. There's this cool dynamic camera that spins and zooms into the characters all posed and cinematic, but then I started to realize that a lot of the time it felt like these freeze frames stopped just short of something really cool happening, like Gohan finishing off Cell.
I like the diorama thing, but this is a scene that works much better in motion. Like, the voice acting's fantastic. I don't know how I feel about that.
that's not something I feel like should happen off screen, but at the same time, I can cut it a little bit of slack because the content that's already here is great, and the fact that there are so many other Dragon Ball games that have done nearly all of these scenes justice already. One neat, arguably weird note is that during most scenes, you can actually toggle a first-person camera to see the action happen from the perspective of your chosen character. The only downside to this is that you miss out on the purposeful camera angles and character expressions. It is still a neat way to self-insert and immerse yourself in the story, though. Is this the best story mode in the series? I think it really depends on what you're looking for, actually. If you're big on the what-if scenarios and variety, then hands down, yes. But for me personally, I love this story mode, and it's probably my favorite so far in the entire Tenkaichi series. Moving on, next up are the shop and customization modes. In the shop, you can purchase capsules, which are now called ability items, characters, costumes, character voice packs for emotes, music, strategy items for customizing the AI, and player card backgrounds. All of these can be purchased with the in-game currency Zenny. And to touch on the character unlocks, you can unlock characters through story progression or through just outright buying them if they're available in the shop, but not everyone's available right at the beginning. However, if you do spend the Zenny to buy a character early and then unlock that character through normal means, you actually get Zenny reimbursed to you, though I'm not entirely sure if it's the same amount that it would cost to unlock the character in the shop. You can also wish for characters by collecting Dragon Balls, which come in 3 varieties: the Earth and Namekian Dragon Balls, which are seemingly randomly rewarded after completing versus battles and tournaments, and the Super Dragon Balls, which are rewarded only after certain big story milestones and as a bonus for specific editions of the game. This means that it looks like you can only collect these Super Dragon Balls a finite number of times, and the game is kind of unclear about what rewards are specific to the Super Dragon Balls, but you can find that information pretty easily online. Outside of wishing for characters, you can wish for titles, increasing your player level, costume unlocks, and just straight up extra Zenny too, which takes us back to the shop and customization. Customization, of course, is a staple in this series, and it's pretty much an evolution of what we've seen before. Each item gives a stat boost or passive effect, including things like HP, recovery, or attack boosts, buffs that reduce the time it takes to recover or charge attacks, and some conditional stuff like latent power, which increases your defense as your HP decreases. Each item has a rarity to it, but the only real limit to equipping these items is the number of slots you have available. Fortunately, you can save presets that can be applied to any character, and it's super helpful for applying to a bunch of characters, though I really wish these items could be used in the episode story mode because it'd be a nice way to balance out the difficulty at times. Now we move on to the battle and training modes, which include Battle, Super Training, and World Tournament. Battle includes the versus battles you'd expect, which can be played online or offline. One major complaint I have about online play is that it works really well for me, but there's no crossplay between PC and console, which is super weird in 2024, right? I feel like the game's community would be strengthened immensely with crossplay, and I hope that someday they might consider adding it in. Offline, there's player versus CPU, CPU versus CPU, and local player versus player. You can play standard team battles or DP battles. Yeah, there is a split-screen local multiplayer mode, but a huge caveat to that is that it's limited to only the hyperbolic time chamber map. Apparently, this is for performance reasons, I guess? Like, the PC version even has a split-screen specific graphical options menu, but I still have to wonder if the PS5 truly couldn't handle local split-screen on a larger map. Seems like a weird limitation, but I imagine they probably did the best they could here, and I'm hopeful that maybe someday in the future, they can introduce either expanded support for more maps or make new maps that are inherently compatible with this mode, but I'm not gonna hold my breath either. DP battles are a unique battle type that appeared in previous games, and the way it works is that you can build a team like you would normally, but every character on the roster has a predefined DP assigned to them, which reflects their overall strength. DP ranges anywhere from 1 to 10, and your team DP limit is 15. This means you have to essentially build a balanced team that can include 1 or 2 powerful characters, a few diversely powerful characters, or a full team of weaker characters. Unfortunately, you can't select a character or similar enough character more than once, so my all-Chaozu team dream is dead. Still, for a game that is unabashedly unbalanced, this is a neat way of introducing an almost self-balancing method for players who want a more even matchup. The training mode includes free training and specialized tutorials, which is great for learning all the new mechanics, and I love that it's centered around Gohan and Piccolo. The World Tournament modes are World Tournament, Cell Games, Other World Tournament, Tournament of Destroyers, Tournament of Power, Yamcha Games, and Create Tournament, which is a tournament with custom rules. Each tournament has its own specific rules and restrictions, like the Standard World Tournament and Tournament of Power including ring outs, or the Tournament of Destroyers having you use a team but you can't change characters mid-battle, while the Tournament of Power does let you change mid-battle. In the Create Tournament, you can also do things like restrict flight, HP recovery, and even whether or not ring outs apply. Each tournament also has its own unique announcer, like Cell for the Cell Games or the Grand Minister for the Tournament of Power. One fun little touch in the Standard World Tournament arena is that if you use a super attack, it can scare the spectators and everybody will flee out of the stadium. The custom created tournament is a blank slate where you set all of your own rules, including all of the limitations from other tournaments and stuff like limiting characters to specific specific filters like only Dragon Ball GT characters or only Saiyans. I can't believe they actually brought back basically every previous World Tournament mode from the earlier games and added more. My only real complaint though is that it doesn't look like you can actually change the number of rounds in the tournament, so there will always be 3 rounds unfortunately. Before I move on from the tournaments, I just wanted to say, it seems like the Tournament of Power stage in this game is glitched or something, because it's the only stage in any mode that I've ever had this super weird NPC behavior happen, like, this. Every other stage has been flawless in my experience. Obviously, I have to play at least one match online, so I decided to try the World Tournament mode. Let's see.
Won't let scum like you get away with this!
Alright, I won 1, but I'll probably get knocked out in the next one.
Stop holding back! I want everything you've got!
Okay, that was definitely a fluke. Ain't no way I'm winning the last match.
Eat this! Stop holding back! I want everything you've got!
Oh. I won? What? So originally, this was gonna be a fun little excuse to segue into the announcement I'm making, but I never in a million years expected to actually win. But hey, let's do it anyways. You are invited to participate in a grand tournament, Neo Slayer Z. Neo Slayer is a special tournament where you're not competing against each other, no, but instead, you're all competing against me, and I'm bad. See, I expect to lose basically every match, but simply winning against me is not how you win the tournament, no. You have to beat me faster than every other contestant. The winner is who beats me the fastest. The tournament will take place either in late November or early December, and if you want to sign up, join my Discord server and indicate your interest and I'll add you in. You'll also find details and updates on the specific rules and requirements for the tournament there too. I don't have everything set in stone yet, nor do I have a cap on contestants, but if there is a lot of demand like last time, I'll have to close it off eventually, so definitely hop into the Discord soon if you're interested. Anyways, after the tournaments, we have Custom Battle, a brand new set of 3 modes: Bonus Battles, Custom Battle Mode, and World Library. The Custom Battle Mode lets you create your own scenarios and share them, and it's wacky. Basically, you can pick 2 teams of characters and make a custom little story with an introduction scene and conditional events in battle that can be affected by a huge number of things. I know that's vague, but it's hard to explain just how much you can do because you can basically make anything with this. You can make things happen when someone's HP gets to a certain point, or someone uses a certain ability, or someone misses a certain ability. There's so many options. For example, I made this little scenario where I set up the title and dialogue Mad Libs style by replacing certain words, of which there's a huge number of options by the way, and in this scenario, Mr. Satan challenges Beerus to earn the rightful title of Universe 7's new God of Destruction. When you create a custom battle, you can post it online for other players to complete and even post replays, and these can all be found in the World Library menu. However, you do have to be able to complete your own battle successfully in order to actually post it, which is probably for the best. If you want to check out my custom battle, here's the ID for it, which you can search for in the World Library. Unfortunately, this scenario is PC only because as far as I can tell, there's no cross-platform compatibility for this. I do eventually plan on getting the PS5 version and remaking this though, so I'll share that in the description once it's made. Bonus battles are essentially packed-in custom battles made by the developer, but they're presented in the same way. Know what else is a bonus? Supporting me by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It really helps so much, and I can't stress enough how much I appreciate every one of you. These bonus and custom battles are really neat and give the game basically infinite replayability. While they're not a replacement for traditional voiced cutscenes made by official writers, they are still a really cool way of giving players a hands-on thing to make goofy scenarios they can share with friends. Alright, let's move on to this game's mission system. Xeno's Orders are missions that you can complete to earn various rewards like titles and Zenny. These are the kinds of missions you probably complete naturally while playing the game, whereas Whis' stamp book is similar, but seems to be more targeted specific kinds of missions that ask you to use certain characters or perform certain actions. Finally, we have the grand return of the gallery modes, which are Encyclopedia, My Data, and Theater. My Data and Theater are pretty much self-explanatory. We know what everyone's really here for, and that's the Encyclopedia. This has a character viewer that shows stats, the 3D model, character attributes, costumes, emotes, and voice lines. However, my favorite part of this is Girl Talk. Girl Talk is commentary from Chi-Chi, Bulma, and Videl, and they have something to say about basically every character and every variation of every character too, well, except for Daima Goku. But it's like they made this mode for me. Like, does the average player go to these gallery modes like I do? Where are my gallery mode appreciators at? Make yourself known in the comments. You know, there's something surreal about a purpose-built Tenkaichi game in a post-Dragon Ball Super world, especially since it's a series that's been dormant for such a long time. It's so nice and sweet and wonderful, and it truly fulfills a childhood dream. But there was also this kind of unease coming into this game. Would they do the Tenkaichi series justice after such a long time? Would this be another Ultimate Tenkaichi situation? So obviously I tempered my expectations leading up to this game, but as it turns out, I was worried for no reason because this game is genuinely incredible. I love the presentation, I love how much this game respects the previous games, and I love the way it still pushes everything forward from visuals to gameplay to presentation. If you like being thoroughly entertained at all times while engaging with an easy to learn but hard to master gameplay system, this is the game for you. If you like Dragon Ball at all, this is the game for you. I was blown away by not only the presentation and gameplay, but just how much there is in this game. There's a reason this review took so long, and that's because I wanted to experience as much of the game as I could at first, but I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of everything that the game has to offer. This truly is a return to form for the Tenkaichi/Sparking series, and I hope its success indicates the series having a bright future ahead of it without any more, decade-long gaps between releases. I cannot wait to dig more into this game, but until then, thank you so much for watching, and I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons and channel members, including That's Ash and Gogmome in the Play At Every Game tier, along with all of the people you see on your screen. Thanks so much for the support, and thank you, viewer, once again for watching this. Make sure to check out the Discord if you want to participate in Neo Slayer Z, and until then, have a fantastic day.